The rancher had tasted thousands of meals during his lonely years on the frontier, but the first spoonful of her stew made him forget how to breathe. Nathan Turner slowly lowered his spoon, stared at the quiet young woman beside the stove, and asked in a cold, serious voice, "Who are you?" She froze because that was the one question she had spent years trying to escape. If you enjoy emotional Wild West, stories filled with mystery, romance, kindness, and unexpected twists, stay with Nordic Love Stories because tonight a simple meal will uncover a secret capable of changing an entire rancher's life. It was the summer of 1880, and the Turner Ranch stretched across miles of golden prairie beneath a clear western sky. Nathan Turner was 42, broad-shouldered, hard-working, and known throughout the valley as a man who kept his word. He had built his ranch through droughts, harsh winters, cattle sickness, and years of loneliness. His father had left him little more than an aging barn and a few acres, but Nathan had turned that small inheritance into a successful cattle operation. Still, success had never filled the emptiness inside his home. His kitchen was almost always silent. Most evenings, Nathan ate beans, potatoes, or whatever meat could be cooked quickly over the fire. He rarely invited anyone to dinner, and he had almost forgotten what it felt like to hear laughter around his table. Then one afternoon, a young woman appeared at his gate carrying a worn leather suitcase. Her name was Evelyn Hart, at least that was the name she gave him. She said she needed work and could cook, clean, mend clothing, and help around the ranch. Her dress was plain, her boots were badly worn, and there was a guarded sadness in her eyes that Nathan immediately noticed. "I don't need charity," she said quietly. "I only need honest work." Nathan studied her for a moment before nodding. "Then you can have honest work here." Evelyn thanked him and moved into the small room beside the kitchen. She never asked about his wealth, his cattle, or his past. She simply worked. Within days, Nathan noticed something strange. The meals became better than anything he had eaten in years. Fresh bread appeared at breakfast. Vegetables were cooked with gentle spices, and even simple coffee seemed warmer. Nathan tried not to show how much he enjoyed the food, but Evelyn noticed his empty plate every evening. One Friday, she prepared a thick beef stew using vegetables from the garden, slow-cooked meat, wild herbs, and a tiny amount of honey. Nathan entered the kitchen after a long day, sat at the table, and took one bite. His expression immediately changed. The flavor was familiar, painfully familiar. He tasted smoky herbs, sweet honey, and a particular seasoning he had not encountered since his youth. He looked at Evelyn. "Where did you learn this recipe?" She lowered her eyes. "My mother taught me." Nathan took another spoonful. His voice became quieter. "What was your mother's name?" Evelyn's hands tightened around the edge of the table. She knew the past had finally found her. Nathan remained standing beside the table, waiting for Evelyn's answer, but she could barely speak. For years, she had moved from one town to another, carrying a secret she feared would destroy the only future she might ever have. Finally, she whispered, "My mother's name was Margaret Carter." Nathan's face went pale. He knew that name. He had eaten at the Carter family's home many times when he was younger. Margaret had been famous for her cooking, especially the stew now sitting between them. But there was another name he remembered even more clearly. "Samuel Carter?" he asked. Evelyn slowly nodded. "My father." Nathan stepped away from the table as if the words had struck him. Samuel Carter had once been his closest friend and business partner. They had worked cattle together, shared plans, and dreamed of expanding their ranches. Then a land dispute had destroyed everything. A wealthy neighboring landowner had convinced Samuel that Nathan was secretly trying to take part of his property. Angry words followed. Friendships ended, and before Nathan could prove the accusations were false, Samuel became seriously ill and died. Nathan had spent years believing his old friend died hating him. Evelyn watched his face carefully. "I was told you betrayed my father," she said. "I believed it for a long time." Nathan looked wounded. "And now?" Evelyn reached into her suitcase and removed a folded envelope. Now I know I was lied to. Nathan stared at the envelope. Evelyn explained that shortly before her father's death, Samuel had written a letter revealing the truth. He had discovered that a land broker had secretly changed survey records and manipulated both men. Samuel had realized Nathan had never betrayed him. Instead, someone had deliberately created hatred between them to gain control of valuable land. Nathan took the letter with trembling fingers. He recognized Samuel's handwriting immediately. As he read, years of anger and grief seemed to collapse at once. Samuel had written that Nathan had always been his friend, and that he regretted allowing suspicion to destroy their brotherhood. He had also mentioned something even more important. The original property documents were still hidden among the Carter family's belongings. Those papers could prove that Nathan legally owned the disputed section of land. Evelyn admitted that she had come to the ranch partly to learn whether Nathan was truly the cruel man her family had believed him to be. She had planned to stay only long enough to discover the truth. But Nathan had shown her unexpected kindness from the moment she arrived. He had never demanded her story, never mocked her poverty, and never treated her like a burden. Nathan folded the letter carefully and looked at her. "You came here expecting to find an enemy," he said. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. "I found someone who reminds me of the man my father used to trust." Nathan's voice softened. "Then perhaps your father and I were both robbed of many years." Evelyn smiled sadly. Before sunrise, Nathan promised they would take Samuel's documents to the county office together. For the first time, Evelyn felt that she had finally found a place where she did not need to hide. The next morning, Nathan and Evelyn rode together toward the county records office with Samuel Carter's documents secured inside an old leather folder. The journey was quiet at first, but the silence between them no longer felt uncomfortable. Nathan finally admitted that he had spent years regretting the loss of Samuel. Evelyn confessed that she had spent nearly as many years hating a man she had never truly known. When the original survey maps and Samuel's letter were examined, the truth became undeniable. The disputed land belonged to Nathan, and the wealthy neighbor who had claimed it had relied on forged records. The man's deception was exposed, and the property claim was immediately challenged. Nathan could have demanded revenge, but he refused. "I lost my best friend because of his lies," he said calmly. "I won't become cruel just because he was." Evelyn watched him with new respect. The man she had once feared was not the villain from her childhood memories. He was the man her father had trusted before a lie destroyed their friendship. When they returned to the ranch, something had changed. The house that once felt cold and empty suddenly seemed different because Evelyn no longer felt like a temporary worker. Nathan began asking about her childhood, her dreams, and the places she had lived. She slowly discovered that beneath his serious exterior was a gentle man who had simply forgotten how to let anyone close. Their friendship grew naturally. Nathan repaired the loose fence around Evelyn's garden while she taught him how to make fresh bread without burning it. Sometimes they laughed at his terrible attempts, and sometimes they sat quietly beside the kitchen window watching the sunset. One evening, Evelyn prepared the same stew that had revealed her identity. Nathan took one spoonful and smiled. "I remember this taste." Evelyn smiled back. "Some things are difficult to forget." Nathan looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe that's because some memories are waiting for the right person to bring them back." Evelyn's cheeks turned slightly red. The ranch had once been a place of loneliness, but now there was warmth in every room. She had arrived carrying suspicion, grief, and an old family wound. Nathan had opened his door to a stranger, unaware that she carried the truth about the greatest heartbreak of his life. Yet kindness had accomplished what anger never could. It had given both of them a chance to understand the past and choose something better for the future. Evelyn eventually decided to stay at Turner Ranch, not because she owed Nathan anything, but because she had found a home where she was valued for who she truly was. Her cooking became loved throughout the valley. But Nathan always insisted that the greatest gift she had brought him was not her famous stew, it was the chance to forgive. And as the two sat together near the kitchen window, one golden evening, Nathan reached for her hand and said, "I think your father would be glad you came here." Evelyn gently squeezed his fingers. "I think he would be glad you were here too." Sometimes a stranger arrives carrying a secret, only to become the person who brings warmth back into a lonely heart. Sometimes forgiveness cannot change the past, but it can change everything that comes after it. If this story touched your heart, like this video, subscribe to Nordic Love Stories, and stay with us for more emotional Wild West romances filled with kindness, mystery, and unforgettable endings.